Fury of Dracula is a game that has been out for a long amount of time. It came out in 1987, and that is an amount of years ago that is big enough that I don't want to do the math because that changes every year anyway. In that time, there have been a lot of changes to the game. Characters getting new abilities, or other characters taking their abilities. They added Mina Harker at one point. They completely changed how ocean travel worked. A lot of event cards were changed or swapped around. Items were renamed, and the entire combat system was changed in 3rd edition. And because of that, a lot of people are in the mindset of wanting to suggest changes to Fury of Dracula. Especially when they think one side or another side isn't doing well enough and they're losing a lot, and so they try to suggest a lot of changes. And a lot of those changes are not thought through well. So because of that, I tend to avoid suggesting things I would change about the game, because part of me is like, maybe I need to play this more before I go suggesting change. I used to think rumor tokens were overpowered and maybe shouldn't be part of the game, and then I just played a whole lot, and I was like, rumor tokens aren't really that bad. But if you put a gun to my head and was like, Quincy Morris, what would you change about Fury of Dracula? I would say, why are you pointing a gun at my head and asking me that? That's kind of a strange request, and it seems a little contrived. But here we go. Let's talk about the things of which I would change. Let's start with some of Dracula's powers. Now, when you're going about suggesting a change to a game, the two big things that you want to think about are, one, you want to make the change as simple as possible, and I would also say as small as possible. You want to try incremental changes, especially if you're trying to deal with balance. And the other thing you want to do is you want to try to use the mechanics that are already in the game as much as possible, as opposed to introducing new mechanics. Just go on Board Game Geek at some point and look at all the variants, and people just introduce all sorts of crazy ideas. And yeah, they're being creative, and that's cool, but that is how you get games that are really, really complicated. And Fury of Dracula, as you may have noticed from playing the game, is a little complicated and doesn't need more of that. So as much as I would like rules like, oh, Dracula takes damage in his powers when he uses them based on how many powers are on the trail, and certain ones, if they're reused, have a linear logarithmic increase in the amount of damage they do. It's like, okay, that all sounds interesting and whatnot, but yikes, is what I have to say. So, what I would change. I have a kind of a long list here. Some of these I'm more passionate about than others. Some of them are small, some of them are big, and then at the end you'll get a nice little bonus thing, which is just sort of a fun thing. For me, at least. First thing having to do with wolf form. So wolf form is really powerful. It's meant to be. It's Dracula's get out of jail, not quite free, but basically free card. And it has a whole bunch of uses, and it's really good. I would just, if I were to change this card, the only thing I would change about it is that I would up it to 2 blood. 1 blood feels like nothing, and given the versatility of this card, it seems like there's a lot of times when you aren't ever really thinking about the damage. I feel like 2 damage, especially given how much Dracula can heal, really is more in line with... It makes Dracula have to make more decisions. It makes it more of a question of, oh, do I really want to use wolf form? Is the damage going to be a problem? And I think that's fine. And 1 to 2 isn't that bad. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff Dracula has that heals him for 2. Fangs, specifically. So it's not as big of an increase as, say, from, like, 2 to 3. But I think it would tune the power just enough that it would be better. I'm of the opinion that Dracula is a little overpowered in this game, just a little. If you at highest level play with highest level both sides, I would say Dracula's a little better, a little more likely to win than the hunters. Although I don't think it's nearly as bad as people on Board Game Geek would say. Some people say Dracula literally cannot lose. unless the hunters get incredibly lucky. I don't think those people understand horse economy, renewed vigor combos, or the importance of week 1 not moving until you find Dracula. But I do think he's a little strong, which is fine, and it's totally understandable because in 2nd edition, Dracula was very weak, and the hunters won, it was like 60-40, I think were the BGG stats. Someone can correct me on that if they're wrong. So they really wanted to go in the other direction with 3rd edition, and they went too far in 3rd edition. 3rd edition had a few exploits that were really bad. So, and then in 4th edition, they pulled it back. They made some fixes. Not very many, though. There's a reason people refer to 3rd and 4th as the same game, because they basically are. So, the other change. Misdirect. I would make this cost a blood, simply because you should just always be using Misdirect, it feels like. When you have a card with no cost, you really want it to be really weak, and Misdirect is actually really strong. Misdirect used to be a card called Double Back, which was a card that was there just so you could move into a space you've already been to, and the hunters know you used it and know, oh, he just moved in this space. And it was purely there to help Dracula if he accidentally got himself into a corner, to allow him to maybe get out by moving into a space. And when that was all the card did, it made sense for it not to cost a blood. With Misdirect, the fact that it's just remove a trail, a city from your trail, lets you do the week 1 thing, where you remove the city that your starting location, which you should always do. And there's no reason not to do it. And whenever there's no reason not to do a thing, that's a sign that it is poorly designed, in my opinion. Choices are interesting. And when it's basically no choice, where it's always good to use this, like if hunters are next to your trail and they're about to walk into your trail, and there's no really good encounter in that space that you want to mature, use Misdirect to hide yourself, and there's no reason not to use it. And you can use Misdirect when it's the 6th space on the trail, which means you can immediately get it back. I think it should cost a blood. I think people will still do the Misdirect trick in the first week, even with it costing a blood. But it will make more choices, and more, should I do this? And it'll feel more like a punishment when Dracula has to double back over his own location, or when the hunters are getting close, and then he has to use Misdirect to keep them from finding him. It's like, okay, well, he took a little damage, so that's good. And even with doing that, Wolf Form and Misdirect, that's 3 blood, which feed heals. And part of me would say I think feed is overtuned and I should tone it down to 2, but I think small changes. I think this is kind of enough in terms of powers. I'm looking at my notes here to see if there's any other power changes that I think I want to do, and I don't think there are. I think really just upping these by 1 blood really will fix things. Everything else is really good. Dark Call, I've toyed around with the idea of it having another ability where instead of drawing 5 encounters, you draw a card from the bottom of the deck until you reveal a Dracula card, or draw a card from the top of the deck, and if it's a Dracula card, you get it. I like the idea of being able to use Dark Call to draw a Dracula event. 2 damage is a lot, and not placing an encounter is a lot, and stopping movement is a lot. I think... And the thing about Dark Call is that it's only used for getting encounters, so like once you get the encounters you want, you never see it again. And so I think giving it more versatility actually could be interesting. An ability to draw Dracula events. And I think the game would be more fun with more Dracula events in the game. And it doesn't feel overpowered because you're stopping a move. So if you get a card that lets you double move, it's like, okay, congratulations. You didn't move, so you could move twice next turn. Okay, I guess that's alright, and you damage yourself twice. So I don't think it would be overpowered. I think it would give the card more versatility. And it would make the game more fun, because there'd be more Dracula events. But when you add more Dracula events, you need to be careful and talk about maybe some other things that I have been thinking about and might get into. But let's talk about some of the event cards. Now, I'm okay with the idea of some event cards being better than others. I think when this video comes out, my tier list will have come out on the Hunter events, and there's a big difference in the really good ones and the really bad ones. And that's fine. I like the idea of you wanting to dig for specific good ones, and the deck is small enough that you won't really feel like you'll have lost just because you didn't draw the specific cards you need. I mean, sometimes you will a little bit, but I think it's at a good amount. But I think some of them are so bad that maybe they need to be helped. And one of those is blood transfusion. Which is interesting, because blood transfusion is actually buffed from 2nd edition, if I remember correctly. I think you had to take 2 damage before. And yeah, I think I forget the original blood transfusion, but this basically has no uses, partially because bites aren't really all that bad, and in some ways that you could buff blood transfusion is buffing bites, which I think actually might be good for the game. If I were to do a holistic suggestion, and a lot of my suggestions buff the hunters, I would also add things like, I think bites should maybe reveal 2 cards. Just to really make it so that they are, except for Mina, you would say on Mina, only reveal 1. So her starting one doesn't, only reveals 1. But yeah, I think making bites worse. Because getting a bite really feels like, when I get bitten as the hunters, I'm usually super happy, because it means, oh, this guy's not going to die. He just does a bite. Oh, that's great. And getting rid of the bite doesn't really do you anything. So what I would do, and again, I want to make small changes, and this may not sound like a small change, it may sound really big, but since bites usually also score Dracula a point, and that's another thing, I think they should universally score Dracula a point. I think it should just be a thing in the rules that when you inflict a bite, you get a point, instead of this whole, like, oh, you get a bite when in these circumstances, but not when he uses Heavenly Host, or something. I think when you do a bite, you get a point. So I think blood transfusion should remove a point. I think it's fair. You have to do a whole lot to get this to work, and you have to be bitten. And especially if Dracula always gets a point when he bites, this is just taking away a single point. And remember, like, Vampire Lair isn't even necessarily all that good, and with this, you kind of have to do as much stuff as Vampire Lair. But instead of getting rid of 2 influence, you get rid of 1 influence and the bite token. And you have to damage yourself. I think that, even with that, I don't think the card would see play. So the other thing I might consider doing is having a secondary effect. And you would still have it, you can only play it if you're not weakened, but it'd have a secondary effect of you deal yourself 1 damage and then another hunter in your space heals for 3. I think that would be good, and would be interesting. It would make the card actually see a little bit of play of like, oh, this character can heal another character. I mean, they take damage themselves, but they net 2 damage. And that could be interesting. I don't think that's too strong. Maybe it would be. Maybe just 2 is enough. But, like, bites are so rare, I feel like this should give another healing effect. So that's my opinion on that. Let's talk about Long Night. Long Night is another card that seems a little too weak. Because Dracula events are so strong. And one of the things I might do to fix that is to maybe make Good Luck a little more usable. Good Luck is just too specific on what it counters. Good Luck was nuts in 2nd edition, but that was because in 2nd edition there were only night supplies. The only times you supplied, you always drew from the bottom of the deck. So Dracula got a ton of cards, the Hunters got a ton of cards, and so you got 2 copies of Good Luck, and Good Luck just said cancel a Dracula card. Which was really interesting and fun, because you would get a certain amount of cancels, maybe 1, maybe 2, that you could use to cancel really powerful events, and so the question is which ones are going to come out, and which ones are the worst to happen when. But without all of that, and Dracula events being a little more powerful, it makes Long Night really not worth doing. It feels like Long Night should be the rule, just in the base game, that you can move at night, and then you draw from the deck, and maybe you'll give Dracula a card. Like, I feel like that should just be the rule, and a lot of people have thought that you shouldn't need an event to do this, and so I think Long Night should just be... And the other really bad thing about Long Night is since you play it at dawn, you don't really know if you want to use it. So, at the very least, switch it to play it at night, because at night, maybe you're thinking, oh, we didn't find him in the dawn, so now we do need to play Long Night to move, because we didn't get where we needed to go. When you play it at dawn, you might get where you need to go anyway. Which is usually what you're using Long Night for, is you're wanting to search a whole bunch of locations to try to reveal, okay, we know he was in these many cities, we can only check 4 of those, hey, we could play Long Night and check a few more. I mean, that's kind of when you use Long Night. But since you play it at dawn, you throw this out, and maybe you discover him on the second or first search, and then you've wasted the card. So either have it play at night, or what I think really would just be the best use of this card is simply at night, as an action, move. Yeah, just, I think that's fine. It still has all the weaknesses of Long Night, where if you move into Dracula's space, you're still going to get attacked. And yeah, you're getting Dracula fewer cards, and I just explained how I think Dracula needs to be getting more cards, and the game will be more fun with that change. And so if I were to make the change to this, I would want to also make the change to Dark Call, so Dracula was getting more cards. But I think it would make it see more play and generally be more useful. But I don't think it would be overpoweredly useful. You know, it's just a little faster. Hunters want to be able to move at night. I think they should have a card that lets them move at night, and this is it. And it has weaknesses, and I think that would... In some ways it's weaker, but because you can't have all 4 people move, but come on, when is the time you even have 3 hunters use this card in an action? Usually it's just 1 or 2. Okay, so that is what I say about that. What are some other events? I have not organized my... I have not organized this at all. Okay, let's go and talk about... I think there's some changes to Dracula events that I wanted to make. Yeah, what those are here. Are the Dracula events listed here? They are. Okay, so let's talk about the allies. So there's a problem with Dracula's allies. Oh goodness. Okay, I'll just pick one. I don't know how to spell Emmanuel Wolf. Okay, so let's talk about the allies. The problem with Dracula's allies is that the once per game ability, this first ability, is pretty much always the superior ability to the second ability. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, they're actually very good. They do a really cool effect, generally. Especially Emmanuel Hildesheim. Oh my gosh. Yeah, look at his ability. Yeah, look at what his once per... Look at the back of the top 6 event cards. Draw all Dracula events and discard the others face up. Or, you know, maybe you'll get a card or 2. And if you get 1 card, you just pay for him. But if you get like 2 or multiples, it really completely changes how the hunters have to do things. The once per games are really, really good. And you don't want to pick the allies because the hunters may have good luck. And then you're just like, okay, play good luck. Which doesn't even cost me an action. And now your ally's gone. That doesn't really feel fun to me. I like that the whole point of them adding the once per game ability on allies was because in the base game, allies were only allies. And so if you already had an ally out, it was like, oh dang it, I drew an ally, what a waste, he's not going to be able to do anything. Although that was kind of interesting because it was like, okay, which one do we want when? Obviously, certain allies were better in certain circumstances. And they did a really good job, I think, with the hunters and giving them the search effects on the allies. It's not a huge effect, but there's some cool stuff you can do with it. For Dracula, there's really no reason to use the ally because good luck gets rid of him. So, I think, and this is where I'm breaking my rule a little bit of adding rules instead of just changing and, you know, sticking with the rules we already have. I think that you should only, if you have no ally, you have to play an ally for the ally. I think that will make Dracula cards less scary, which will cause more Dracula cards to be in the game, which will be better for the game, and might even help Dracula. Although that, I think, might be bad logic about it helping Dracula. Technically, it'll be hurting Dracula. But it's not going to hurt him that much, and it's going to cause more allies to be in the game, and then I think that's more fun. Second edition was fun because a lot of events on both sides came out. I still think 4th edition is better, but there's some ways that the earlier editions were very cool, and I think we should not try to lose those. So yeah, that is what I would change about the Dracula allies, which I think is the only thing I want to change about Dracula events. I like that they're very powerful. So yeah, let's talk about some of the weapons and how I would change those. So you may be thinking, oh, you're going to tell us how to fix Garlic Wreath. I don't really know how to fix Garlic Wreath. It's so bad you really have to kind of design a new card. If I were to change something, I would say I think it should never go away until Claws is played. So I think at the end of a combat, if it didn't go off, it should go back into your hand. And I think that bite damage should still damage. So this not a bite, I think you should remove that. I think if you get a bite, it should still do the damage. You'll still get bit, so like if Mina is wearing it, she'll die, but Dracula will take 4 damage. I don't think... Because the problem with this is that Mesmerize turns this off at night, and then Claws also turns this off. And so... And since there's nothing that counters Claws and Mesmerize, playing this... And again, you're playing this instead of having an item, is kind of worthless. The only other thing maybe that I would do if you wanted to make this good, and I just thought of this, and actually this is kind of an interesting idea, is that Garlic Wreath doesn't count against your item limit. Then it's actually something you're looking for, because while it doesn't do a whole lot, since it doesn't count against your item limit, it's like, well, it's kind of like gravy on the top. And then you change nothing about it. And so that would be sort of a simpler way to change it. But it's so far off from being good. I would have to design an entirely new card, and I'm trying not to do that. Now, Crucifix. Crucifix is pretty good, except for in one way that I think kind of was unintentional. And that's the fact that this cancels Escape is Missed is bad. If Crucifix didn't cancel Escape is Missed, it would be a better card. And that I do not think was the intention of the game. Escape is Missed is rare enough that you can never usually really expect it to come out. Except for maybe in a one-on-one fight against a vampire that doesn't want to get killed. But in that case, you really want to damage it, and using your Crucifix doesn't damage Escape is Missed. And against Dracula, canceling Escape is Missed is really bad, because then Dracula can escape his bat, and often you prefer him to escape his Missed, because then you can't jump on him. And you didn't do any damage, so it's like you failed the card. Crucifix is a card you play when you want to damage Dracula. So I think Crucifix should do 3 damage to Escape is Missed. And I don't think that's that much of a buff, because there's only 1 Escape is Missed in the game, in the deck, for Dracula. So the chances that Crucifix can come out and hit Escape is Missed are pretty rare. But it turns it into sort of like a knife or sort of like a rifle, in the sense that it becomes a question of, oh, if he goes Escape is Missed, maybe I'll play my Crucifix, or do I think he's going to escape his bat, then I'll play my knife. Whereas currently, there's no question. I'm going to try to cancel Escape his bat, and if he escapes his Missed, hey, that's fine. Then we'll try to catch him next time, because I won't do any damage. Because it's a one-on-one. There's very rarely ever times when it's like you're in a group of hunters and the guy with Crucifix plays Crucifix, and oh, I canceled the Escape is Missed. Now everybody else can damage him. Just because Dracula would have had to pick that person to fight, which makes it even less likely that it goes off, and Escape is Missed is already super rare. So yeah, I think it should damage Escape as Missed. Escape is Missed was really, really strong in 2nd edition, and when they went to 3rd edition, they were like, okay guys, Escape is Missed is total BS, it's way too strong, there's literally only one way to counter it, and that's not fighting Dracula at night. 2nd edition had an entirely different day night cycle. Or you could use Garlic, which actually, Garlic sort of was the despair mechanic that's in 3rd edition, where you have to wait a certain number of turns before you can escape. In 2nd edition, you had to play a card in order to get that. You had to play Garlic, and it's Dracula cannot escape for 3 rounds. They just introduced that as a mechanic, which is why I'm thinking Long Night. They should introduce that as a mechanic. It shouldn't be its own card. But Escape is Missed, nothing countered it, and so if you played Holy Water, he would still escape, but you would do damage to him. And so they wanted to tone that back, and the way they did that is like, hey, we'll have a normal card that cancels Escape is Missed. Hey, that sounds pretty good. And we'll make it rare. And yeah, that sort of fixed it. I don't think Escape is Missed is overpowered. I just think there's still kind of no counter to it, and that's kind of a problem. And I don't think Crucifix is actually all that good, because it's broken by strength, Which was the other thing I was thinking about. Is like, okay, if I were to make Crucifix better, because I think it's not as good as it should be, would I make it where it's not broken by strength? But I think it's more interesting if it damages Escape is missed. Because as powerful as strength is, I like that it's a strong card, and I don't really think it needs to be changed that much. I mean, maybe down its damage by 1 just to make it interesting, so that, like, oh, Claws does 4 damage, and Fangs does 2, and Strength does 1, but it breaks your items, or something. But I don't know. I don't really think that needs changing. I think just slightly increasing the power of this by making it damage escape is missed would fix the air quotes problem. Now let's get into something controversial. Okay, so Dogs has had an interesting history. In 2nd edition, Dogs was this card that you had to have revealed, and then it would allow you to deal with actually these same encounters, which did different things, if I remember correctly. Yeah, well, Spy, definitely, because there were no train tickets in 2nd edition. But one thing Dogs did is it gave you a combat bonus, and they took that away in this. And I actually agree with that decision, because part of the interesting part about this game is choosing what items to get. And certain items are very specifically good at certain things. And they made guns more jack of all trades, which I'm not a huge fan of. And they made Dogs way more specified. But I think they made it too specified, because these encounters are not good. They're not really ones you have to worry about. The only real use for Dogs is countering Saboteur in the first week. And that's it. And I think Dogs should be a little better than that. And so... And yeah, people are going to get really up in arms at me about this. I think Dogs should counter Fog and Bats. And I know that completely changes the game, and that's a huge buff to the Hunters, and oh my gosh, they can actually counter Fog, and okay, if you did that, maybe you give Dracula more Fog or Bats, or something. I think, now there's a few ways you could do that. I like the idea of, okay, Fog still goes off, it doesn't counter Fog, but on the Fog card it says, a hunter may reveal Dog to ignore this effect. So I think you can, if you're in Fog, you can be like, oh no, I don't know where to go. Hey, Sparky, lead me to where's the vampire? And you have the dog on the leash, and it smells its way through the fog. I think that's a thing that's cool and thematic, and you should be able to do. And I think them being able to eat bats and bark and attack bats and keep them from harassing you is totally a thing. They can jump up in the air when the bats swoop down and eat the bats. I think that's a thing. The thing is, I don't like that Forewarned is the only way to counter Fog and Bats. I like that there's disparity in the encounters and disparity in the events. I think there's too much disparity in events. And it may be too strong to make the change of having Dogs counter Bats and Fog, but I think it makes thematic sense. I think it keeps Dogs as a very specific, okay, this helps you with encounters. Doesn't help you with all encounters, Cisgani bodyguards still wreck it, and Cisgani mobs still wreck it, and it introduces this interesting game of, oh, I want to try to ambush them with wolves first, so they use the Dogs, and then no longer have the Dogs to counter my Bats or my Fog, and that becomes interesting, and it becomes, ooh, I want to hide the fact that I have Dogs, and oh, he's hitting me with these things, do I use it now? Because there's no choice right now on whether or not you reveal Dogs. If Dracula hits you with an encounter and you can use Dogs to protect you from the effect, you always do it. And anytime you always do a thing, it's a sign that it's a poorly designed game and that you want to have choice. I want rats to ambush Dogs and the hunters have to be like, do I use Dogs here? I don't know. Whereas right now it's like, oh, I actually got to use out of Dogs. How fun. I think the game would be better. Maybe reduce the number from 4 to like 2 or 3. Yeah, I wouldn't have 4 counters to Fog in the game, or increase the number of Fogs. And yeah, that's a huge change. But hey, guys who made Fury of Dracula, we'll make a new version in like 10 or 20 years. Maybe think about this. So. Yeah, other items. Are there any other item changes? Oh yeah, okay, so this is sort of a petty one that wouldn't really change the game much. but I think pistol should counter escape as bat. Now, specifically, to explain, not that it's added, this is how I would change the stats. And really what I'm changing here is pistol and knife. So I think pistol should have plotting and bat. And knife should have fangs and claws. Now, there's two reasons for that. One is completely petty, and the other is actually a strategy thing. So let's do the petty one first. I think the guns should be the thing that you use to shoot a bat out of the sky. I just think that makes sense. It makes sense for the rifle. I think it makes sense for the pistol. And the plotting is like this secret aggressive attack, and that's why pistol and punch are the things that take it out. Because Dracula's gloating over you, and it's surprise, like quick draw a pistol, and are able to shoot you from across the room, and punch you just charge across the room. But I'm getting into the theme of the counters, and the theme is only kind of pasted on a tiny bit. I don't... Now, the other reason, other than it makes more thematic sense for rifle and pistol to counter the bat, and for knife to counter fangs and claws. It's the, oh, yeah, okay, a knife helps me better in melee fights. And then it explains why the rifle helps in a melee fight. Because with a rifle, you can block and hit with the butt and that kind of thing, and maybe stop, the claws from coming at you. And a knife, it's a melee weapon, so it should help you from the melee attacks. That makes sense. But, strength is like, I'm just invulnerable, so nothing you can do can help me other than holy attacks. But other than all of that pettiness, I don't like how powerful knife is. Knife should be the jack of all trades, master of none. Now it's the jack of all trades, master of quite a bit. It cancels escape as bat, which is really big. Canceling fangs is really big, but the 3 damage is the real kicker. The fact that this does 3 damage makes this the ideal team weapon attack, which I'm fine with. The knife should be the thing that does the most damage to vampires, because that's how Dracula was killed in the book, and that's how Van Helsing suggests you kill vampires, is with things that pierce the heart, and not to use guns. Guns should not be the thing you use to kill vampires. They should be knives, and heavenly hosts, and garlic, and all of those things. I'm fine with that. But I think by switching escape as bat over to pistol, it makes there be a lot more interesting questions regarding how to deal with Dracula. And it also makes escape as miss better. Because the hunters have to decide, okay, do I want the thing that can keep him from escaping, or do I want the thing that does more damage? It also has a buff to holy bullets, which I don't think is bad. And I think it'll balance out some of the power. Knife will still be really good, and it'll make it more tempting to go holy bullets, which in some senses makes the guns more risky, but I think it will add to the mind games. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to make it... You don't want to make something just way too good. If I have hunters with all knives and I'm going against Dracula, I just play all the knives and not care, because they're all going to do damage. But if knife doesn't cancel escape as bat, suddenly I'm like, ooh, do I want the knife? Is the extra damage really worth it for the fact that it doesn't cancel escape as bat? Let me think about this. And then when you start thinking, that's when fun things happen. So, I would change that. Okay. Other things. I've talked about Dark Hall, talked about the allies. Let's talk about... Yeah, let's talk about rumor tokens. And to do that, I'm going to need to pull up an actual board of the game. So let me just quickly start an... an AI game. I'll just play both. And so, rumor tokens, a lot of people, especially on Board Game Geek, just hate rumor tokens. They just hate the way rumor tokens work. They don't think they add anything fun to the game. The idea of rumor tokens that people thought would be cool is like, oh, it's like a bet that Dracula makes. Like, I bet you can't find this place, and if you don't, then I'm gonna get to do a cool thing, and it's gonna be fun, and ooh, look at me. That's not what it is. Rumor tokens are just a resource Dracula uses to put on vampires to try to score points. And sometimes he bluffs with them, but good hunter players get rid of all of the encounters anyway. Now this is a bit of a nerf to rumor tokens, but some people say they need it. Most people just don't play with rumor tokens because of how powerful they are and how much they don't add to fun gameplay. So what I would do is if you put a rumor token on a location, you put a corresponding rumor token somewhere on the board, which can be anywhere. If you happen to have that on the actual associated location, then when it slides off, you get a bunch of points. If they're not associated, then the rumor token just goes back to you. So it becomes a rumor. It's like, hey, I heard rumors that there's like maybe vampires over in 6, and you can put it like right next to the hunters, and usually it's somewhere that's further away from you, and it's like, do I go deal with this? Is that worth doing, this rumor? I mean, and what usually always happens is Draculas will be putting it on places that aren't matched up. But you get the rumor back, and then you can start doing a lot of rumors. And so what that does is, since it's mostly a bluff, a lot of time hunters will be like, it's probably a bluff. He's just trying to move me away from where Dracula is, so he's probably over here. And so it becomes this interesting bluffing thing, or sometimes you do put it on there, because you get a ton of points out of rumor tokens. And that's fine, and I think that justifies the points. You basically have to be openly bluffing, come at me bros, there's totally a vampire right here, and then they have to not be able to get it. Also because the whole week 1 thing where you can use the Saboteur to protect a vampire with a rumor token and then you just mature it and win. That's kind of dumb. I know I told everybody about it and sort of introduced people to the tactic, and I use the tactic and other people use the tactic. I think it's kind of dumb. Now it's not that dumb because it makes dogs good, which I like, but I really think there are other ways to make dogs good, which I already talked about. So I think the rumor token thing, I think it would make the game more fun. And I think that's more fun than not playing with rumor tokens, which is what most people, at least in meat space, do. They just don't play with rumor tokens because they think they're too powerful, and they don't add anything fun to the game. The whole bluffing thing, I think, makes it fun. Okay. And again, remember, if it slides off and it isn't associated, you get the rumor token back and you can reuse it. So, yeah. And then maybe you would add the rule that if the hunter does go there and fight the encounter and kill whatever's there, maybe, I don't know, maybe they get rid of the rumor token. I don't know. I still think that he should just get it back and you can keep using them until it matures or until the game is over. Okay, so the other thing that I think needs to be changed is actually regarding the map. Now, the map has had some changes over the years. The map is great. This map is so good, with so much interesting asymmetry and cool bottlenecks and choke points and ever-changing geography with all the different interconnected roads and stuff. But the Mediterranean Sea is stupid. Specifically, the number of places that the Mediterranean Sea can go to with wolf form. And just to show you how stupid it is, I'm going to force you guys to count with me. So look at the Black Sea. How many places can you wolf form from there? 4. Here, and then 1 over to here, and from here, and 1 over to here. Okay, alright, that's reasonable. Ionian Sea. Oh, 4 again. Okay, alright. Well, but this is Eastern Europe. They don't want to make ocean travel too crazy from over there. Let's pick somewhere a little more crazy, like the North Atlantic. Okay, alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 8. Alright, double that. Okay, but it's, Western Europe, so the hunters can move faster, so that's kind of good. North Sea, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 8. Alright, or did I count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, okay, alright. So, decently high number. It's good. Wolf form should do a good thing like that. Tyrrhenian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 9, actually. Okay, so that's a little higher. That's fine. Let's look at the Mediterranean Sea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah. That is dumb. Okay? Okay, maybe it should be 2 more than the average. The average is about 8 or something. 13? Did I really count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah. That's a little too much. And here's the worst part about that. They're on 3 different continents. So this North Sea has a lot of connectors, but it's only on 2 continents. So okay, that's pretty doable. And then 1 into 9. And okay, that's kind of bad. This has a few, but it's on this you can go into 3 continents, but it's only a few connectors in the North Atlantic. So that that feels fair. Adriatic has a whole bunch that you can get to. And so that's a little crazy, but the thing about the Adriatic is that it's a non-T intersection ocean. So when Dracula goes to the Adriatic, you generally know he's in the Adriatic. The Mediterranean is a T intersection sea. So someone can go to the Tyrrhenian, move, and then Mediterranean, Ionian, and then wolf form from there, and suddenly it's all of those 13 plus these 4. Or South Atlantic, Mediterranean, and then suddenly it's all of these, and it's just insane. So the Adriatic has a whole bunch of connectors, but you usually know, and the same with the North Sea. It has a bunch of connectors, and it's on 2 different continents. But usually you know someone, it's the kind of place you go to. You generally know someone's in the North Sea when they're in the North Sea, same with the Adriatic. But the Mediterranean is just, it's just too much. So what would I change? I think 1 or 2 road connectors being removed might be in order. This one, maybe? So there's this interesting choice of, okay, do I want to escape long ways or go north? It makes Clonfermont a little more isolated. Because one thing, Dracula's just always take this path, and I feel like there should be more choice there. Maybe getting rid of this road. It's really long, for starters. And these 2 cities are a little too similar. It's like, okay, this one has a rail. So that's kind of cool. Or, alternatively, you could turn some of these roads into rails. Or remove this road. So it's connected by rail, but not connected by road. I think that's pretty good change. It makes rails a little better, and it kind of nerfs horses, which I think that actually isn't that bad. Horses are a little strong. So making it where this is rail only, because like Draculas usually don't take this route anyway. They usually always go up to 60 or 24 or 25 if they're trying to go down to the boot. They never want to go here, so removing it, I think, doesn't hurt anything too much. Spain is fine. I wouldn't change Spain. But yeah, remove 36 to 60, maybe 36 to 15. Don't make it quite so, not 36 to 60, 36 to 37, and maybe 36 to 15. Yeah, don't make it quite so, just like, oh, Mediterranean Sea. I guess you have to look for me for the next 6 turns. Haha, I pressed the funny button and was able to do it. Yeah, it's not like this region needs buffing. The fact that there's so many different regions all crammed together like this already makes this a strong part of the map, because it can let Dracula avoid Psychic Bond. It's not like Austria-Hungary, where it's this huge area that, okay, if you're in the area, you kind of have to stay in the area for a while, and yikes. Yeah, so I would change that part of the map. Is that everything? Man, I just sort of took these just took these notes randomly. Oh yeah, there's 2 other things that are also small and dumb. But to get to them, we're going to go look at Dracula encounters. Hold on, let me just... Wait, not settings. I don't want to go to settings. I want to go to the library. So the first thing is regarding Saboteur. Saboteur is fine in terms of its effect. I think it's actually quite good. This is fine. It's a weak card, but that's okay. It's a weak Bats, but not everything has to be as good as Bats. The thing I don't like about Saboteur is this mature effect. It seems kind of useless to me. Unlike, say, Spy's mature effect. This is actually quite good because you choose a hunter, and you get to see what they have. And even though this happens randomly, it still is a good effect. And Sisgani Bodyguards is a super fun. It's like, ooh, I have like actual bodyguards. This is a fun effect, and I get to use it on tap. That's cool. I like it. But Saboteur, you're randomly going to get a roadblock, and a single roadblock usually doesn't do a whole lot because it comes out randomly. So I think Saboteur's mature effects should work the same way as Sisgani Bodyguard. I think once you set up this Saboteur, you have him then as your minion, and then that makes it cool. It's like, ooh, I've gotten a minion that I can use to do a thing, and so as basically in the same timing window that you use Dracula powers, you can discard the Saboteur and put a roadblock down. And yeah, hunters can use good luck to get rid of it, and in some ways that is actually buffing good luck, which I think good luck needs. It's not a huge buff to Saboteur, you don't see him mature a lot, but usually when you see this, hunters are always like, nah, I'll let it mature, it's not going to do anything. It's not worth it to reveal a rifle. I don't like that. I think each of these things should do at least a little something, unless it's something designed not to do anything when it matures, like bats. This is obviously a trap card. Rats is just absolute garbage, and I don't know where I would start, but I guess he's supposed to have some bad ones in the deck, and so that's fine. But yeah, I think making it where it's an on-tap roadblock is good. I don't think it's too much of a buff. The other thing, and this is the most important change in the whole game, is that Reckless Vampire and New Vampire need to have their names swapped. New vampires shouldn't be the ones that are better at fighting. I feel like a Reckless Vampire should be the one that's better at fighting. Or better, and this is actually a real, actual thing, is just don't call it New Vampire. So the reason why this card is called New Vampire is because originally Dracula only had one type of vampire. It was just called New Vampire. It was an encounter called New Vampire, where, oh, you set down a new vampire. Then the expansion... Wait, no, it's not Reckless. It's New Vampire and Aristocratic Vampire. Right. That's the ones I wanted to swap. What do my notes say for this completely meaningless... Yeah, New Vampire and Aristocratic Vampire. Yeah, why is Aristocratic Vampire the worst vampire? You'd think that Dracula turning an aristocrat into a vampire is better, and is able to do, and is cooler and better for Dracula. So why is it the worst vampire? It just, I don't know, seems kind of dumb. Yeah, a new vampire who's just a brand new vampire and doesn't know what to do, though, that should be the one that's easy to stake. It doesn't know how to be a vampire, so you just kill it. You don't have to do anything special. But if it's like, ooh, aristocratic or reckless, those are the ones that'll fight you and do stuff, and even maybe just completely swap it around. Like maybe reckless vampire should be aristocratic, because it's like, oh, he's an aristocrat, so he's actually able to gain influence by like biting other aristocrats, and he gains this track. But he's an aristocrat, so he doesn't have as much HP as like a reckless vampire. Or you just change the name to, like, Devious Vampire or something. I really think they messed up the names on these. Aristocratic Vampire should not be the worst vampire, and a new vampire shouldn't be one of the best vampires who's the hardest to fight. It's the most important thing. You have to change this now, or I'm never playing the game again. Sorry, I can't do it. I can not do it. Okay, I think that is it really for now. Another thing, powers should be listed as variants when playing 4v1, because 4v1 is so hard that you should really communicate not to play with powers if you're doing 4v1, and it should be a variant to use it, because playing with multiple players is a huge disadvantage for the hunters. Okay, so I promised something cool, and so what I did is I'm going to list you guys some of my homebrew events. You see so many of these. Everybody's like, oh, I want to make my own events, and they'll be cool, and they'll do cool things, and they're homebrew events, and oh yeah. I'm the same dumb person who's going to come up with my own ideas. I came up with 3 because you got to have 2 humans and 2 Dracula. So the first one, and this is showing my nerddom, is adding Thomas Builder as an ally. We'll have the normal ally effect. Hold on, let me just find an ally. Oh, for goodness sake. Rufus Smith. Okay, so obviously he's going to have the search location effect as all allies, but his ally ability is going to be, while in play, wolf form has its location card face up. I think wolf form needs counterplay. Ocean travel has counterplay with Rufus Smith, and this wolf form will still be super fast. and will still let you jump over things and be super crazy, but there's a chance that someone will be able to pull Thomas Builder out and throw him down and be like, ooh, we get to just know where you move with wolf form. You can still use wolf form. You don't take more damage from wolf form. The hunters just know where you go when you use wolf form. I think it's good. Now, for those of you who don't know, Thomas Builder was a character in the book who was a zookeeper, who there was this big long interview with a newspaper where he was talking about wolves, and it's with that information that the hunters are able to determine that at a certain point when this wolf got off of a ship, that maybe that was actually Dracula. So from the book, he's a wolf expert, and he gives them a bunch of clues about wolves and the weirdness that they act. And he actually talks to Dracula. He doesn't know it at the time. He has this interesting conversation, and he's actually a really fun character from the book. He has a ton of character and a ton of personality, and you just read this conversation with Thomas Builder, and you're like, Bram Stoker is basing this off of a person he knows. Some person he knows, he just took that person and put them in the book, because this guy has got a ton of character. Now, yeah, a lot of the characters have a ton of characters, and there's a ton of great characters in the book, and if you haven't read Dracula, read Dracula. But yeah, I think Thomas Builder should be in the game. He's a cool character. I think there should be a cool effect that counters wolf form in an interesting way. Okay, the other thing. Oh boy. Okay, this is when I'm getting a little even more crazy. So I named this card Navy Contacts, or maybe Intercept or Hijacked. Okay, here's what this does. Play at sea at night. Dracula must reveal if he is in your location. If he is, conduct a combat that ends after round 1. Other hunters in this space may become delayed to join this combat. So, some people have complained that there's nothing you can really do when Dracula goes to sea. No way to, like, damage him. And I think that's okay, but I'm not against the idea of one card in the whole deck being something that can let you fight Dracula at sea once. And there's a couple reasons why it has to be once, because I do not want to have to create rules for escaping at sea. Yikes. No thank you. So one combat only, which means even when there's no despair, the round is just over at 1. You can't do a whole lot then. In the book, Mina talks about how one of the risks of Dracula going at sea is that he could theoretically get into a fight at sea, and he's kind of hosed when he is. So it should be at least like a theoretical thing that can happen. Yes, the ocean is big. Yes, it can be like 2 ships passing in the night and you just can't find him at sea, but maybe you could. Enough for an event where you find him at sea, but it's night, so you have to sneak up on him. And so he's getting a night fight. You only fight him once, and you could become delayed a bunch, and you have to tweak the rules a little bit, because technically you're not allowed to do actions at night, but like, okay, for this card only, you can do an action at night, and it can be to fight Dracula. And other hunters can be, they have to become delayed, which means they're missing their next day action. Their boats have been easy fighting. And maybe this should have the effect of become delayed. Yeah, I think maybe it should make you become delayed. And you have to know that Dracula's there. You have to be like, okay, we really know he's here. And so you can miss it and be like, okay, we're playing Navy Contacts, and we're attempting to attack you in the Mediterranean, and Dracula's like, nope, I'm not in the Mediterranean. And okay, then you've used the card to determine he's not in the Mediterranean, and that's still a useful use of the card, and I kind of like that. I think it should be a use of the card, and that's what makes me think maybe it shouldn't delay. But yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's a cool thematic moment. And yeah, you could combo it with Heroic Leap to do stupid things, but combos are fun. It's not. I don't think it's overpowered, because it's just one combat, and you have to do a lot and know a lot in order to pull it off. And it's rare. So I think all of that makes it a card, and it has to be played at night because, as I said, it's better for Dracula to fight him at night. And also the timing of it doesn't quite work, because since hunters have to move at sea, in order to use it if you had to play it in the daytime, would mean that you actually have to move ahead of Dracula, and then if he moves into your space, you can use it. And if that is how it works, then I would put 2 in the deck. And that, in some senses, makes sense, because it's like you're laying a trap, and then it's like, okay, Dracula doesn't want to move into your space, and setting up traps where, like, Dracula has to move into your space. Okay, that's kind of cool, but that's a different card than what I designed. I still think it's cooler to be like, I have to move into Dracula's space, and then I can fight him once. So yeah, oh, and then, you know, because we have to add a thing for Dracula, I think Renfield should be an ally. Sure, he died in the book, and technically this takes place afterwards, but, I don't know, make him a vampire, have him come back, or a what-if scenario. I don't know, I feel like Renfield should be in a game about being Dracula. Or you can just have the previous 2 events replace blood transfusion. Or something else, I don't know. This one I didn't put as much work into, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is my video, ha ha ha. So Renfield Ally, so, you know, all allies are going to have 2 effects. So the first is his ally effect when you use Renfield as an ally. Whenever hunters trade, draw an event from the bottom of the deck and discard it if it's a hunter event. And so this would also include Van Helsing using his ability. So he's sort of similar to Manuel Hildesheim, but he draws from the bottom instead of the top. And he limits the hunters whenever they get together. Because Renfield is kind of like he gets in your head, and he has a lot of really interesting like things he says to the hunters. And a lot of the efforts the hunters do in the early game is talking with Renfield. And Renfield manipulates them and then escapes and messes with them in some ways. And so I think this sort of represents Renfield just sort of messing with them in interesting ways, psychologically, and also just like, you know, being a maniac running around doing maniac things. Now, his once per game effect is discard. So this is his, you discard him and you do this effect, and pick a hunter. That hunter must reveal a pistol or rifle, or discard all their events. So it's sort of like Great Wolf in the sense that, you know, with Great Wolf, it's you pick a hunter and they're going to take 4 damage, unless they reveal a Heavenly Host or a Crucifix. This is Renfield just freaking attacks somebody and he's going to smash all their stuff and beat them up and take all their lunch money, and so you have to have a gun. And so I think it becomes interesting when you have a card like that because it makes guns a little better. I think guns, in terms of things that protect you from events, aren't as much as they should be. They were really that way in 2nd edition, and by events I mean encounters, and just like general stuff that Dracula can throw down that is non-spiritual attacks. I don't think there's enough non-spiritual attacks in 4th edition. In 2nd edition, it was like 50-50, and that was really cool. And I think it should be that way. So something like Renfield, I think, would be cool. You know, you can block it if you have a pistol or a rifle. You know, you have to reveal it. Maybe make it have him discard it. I don't know, but yeah, just an idea, something I threw together. No idea if any of those ideas are balanced. And I honestly don't think they are or should be introduced into the game because I don't think variants are all that cool. But hey, if whoever has the rights to Fury of Dracula wants to hire me as a designer, I have designed and helped to design like a game. So I think that makes me qualified to help design Fury of Dracula 5th edition. So yeah, those are my ideas on what I would change in Fury of Dracula. I really hope I pressed record on this, because this is a long video, and thank you for listening to me rant. I hope that you may be blessed for doing so, with Godspeed.